Are you worried about today's dire financial situation?
Put simply, I would argue the Biden economic plan is working.
The storms on Wall Street continue today after regulators seized the assets of Silicon Valley Bank, marking the largest bank failure since the 2008 financial crisis.
Do you worry you'll have enough to pay your mortgage, pay your children's college tuition, enough to retire?
I believe our banking system remains strong.
Regional banks in focus once again today as the market digests the fallout of the First Republic failure.
You have questions, we have answers. It's the Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Thanks for joining us on the Gold Standard radio program. I'm Jennifer Horn, and that is my handsome and intelligent co-host, Ken Russo. Hi, Ken.
Too kind, Jen. So excited to be with you again.
I'm excited to talk to you because digital currency, you're hearing that term everywhere. And a lot of us are scared about what that might mean. Here in California, we live in the state of California. We've got digital driver's license. And it always seems like it's such a great idea to make things more convenient, digital currency. Oh, that couldn't be bad. But there are a lot of hidden things that we need to understand about digital currency, so much so that a couple of states this week said they are going to make digital currency illegal. Indiana and Florida this week said that, right?
Yeah, in 23 states, there's legislation about making gold and silver legal tender. So, I mean, the point is, Jen, is how could we hedge our bets? How could we protect ourselves from a monitored system? Now, monitored money, let's just kind of look at it like that. And, of course, this is our opinion on what's going on. But some actual things have actually taken place, which we're going to get into a little bit more. Now, usually at this time, it all started, you remember, in 1971 with Richard Nixon.
We're fast forwarding to another Republican president.
Yeah, let's fast forward it about 20
right
years
over the
later.
Carter years.
And maybe this is what digital money's about. Maybe, let's see.
What is at stake is more than one small country. It is a big idea, a new world order where diverse nations are drawn together in common cause to achieve the universal aspirations of mankind: peace and security, freedom, and the rule of law.
So I say we must clean the house of white America of racism. Americans.
Now, that is pretty scary stuff. Well, it sounds nice. Obviously, we all want peace. We all want to live together and sing Kumbaya. But when you hear George H.W. Bush talk about a new world order, that seems to be one of those terms that is buzzing around the internet.
Yeah, and what exactly does it mean when
right.
it, about our money? Is it going to be under law? Is it going to be watched closely? Is Big Daddy watching? That seems to be what's going on, and that's more than likely where we're headed. And it's our opinion. But there has been some things like in March of 2022, we saw through executive order, Jen, President Biden, responsible development of digital assets. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's an executive order. That's a fact. We saw in November of 2022, the New York Fed started a pilot program for digital assets. And we have like MasterCard and Visa and a lot of the major banks. This is definitely where we're headed. And this July is the Fed Now payment program, which is supposed to be like a SWIFT code. But what is it? It's a monitoring system of payments. And is there any coincidence that many more IRS agents are being hired to watch what we're doing? So what exactly is at play here? And I would just say to anyone listening, Jen, mm-hmm. and even yourself, being the successful career person that you are.
Thank you, by the way.
Why would you want to leave all of your money in a system where the banking sector is very dangerous, where we're going to get into that? But more importantly, why would you want to leave all of your assets in a system that they're going to watch everything that you do?
See, Ken, this is exactly right. So this is the problem. You'll leave all of your stuff in digital currency. You'll say, go ahead, government, take everything I have and you take care of it if you trust the government. But how many of us now have a reason to question the intentions, sadly, of the United States government, certainly, and the globalists around the world? You want to make sure that you have privacy, that you have security, that you have something real that you can hold on to. And that's why we talk to you all the time about Midas Gold Group. Gold, silver, precious metals, these are things that you can hold yourself and that are still private transactions. So you can actually hedge a little bit. You don't have to trust that a digital currency is going to be overlooked by Big Brother. Midas Gold Group want to remind you, you can always chime in and call the good folks there. 855-322-4653, 855-322-4653, or MidasGoldGroup.com. And you don't have to take our word for this, because Catherine Austin Fitz, who does the Solari report, pretty incredible expert in this field, Ken.
Absolutely. That's exactly what I would call her, an expert in digital currency and the dangers of digital currency. And we have a little short clip here, Mike, about Catherine speaking about digital currency and what it may mean to the average American.
Well, because you've bubbled an entire economy, and now you're bringing out something that could shrink the bubble dramatically, and it could put a lot of banks out of the game and out of the business. So, if the central banks are going to compete directly for retail accounts, it's going to shrink the business and the fees for a lot of banks. So you're talking about cutting their income or putting them out of business. So CBDC is highly controversial. One reason is because many people are beginning to realize, I'm no longer an insider. CBDC is going to turn me into a slave, and they're going to be able to take all my assets. So if you think they could lock you down with the pandemic, the CBDC and digital ID in combination is the ultimate lockdown tool. And they can lock down you whenever they feel like it.
There's a couple of things in there, Jen, that are very, very important.
Frightening.
And real. Mm-hmm. Putting banks out of business. Okay, does that mean that the Federal Reserve Bank is going to be in control of all bank accounts? Maybe. Also saying that we're a slave to the system. Our assets are going to be monitored. If you think that you were locked down during the pandemic, how about the ultimate lockdown tool of your money? They can turn it on or turn it off whenever they want. Now, we'll see. But again, why would you want to have all of your assets in a system that is headed towards that direction, which seems to me is inevitable?
And one of the things, again, that we have to think about with this rollout of a digital currency is we have to look at some of the things that have happened around us over the last several years. And all you have to do is think about the Canadian truck drivers, the people who had their bank accounts shut down because they were protesting the government. Does that mean if we don't like another COVID lockdown, or if we don't like something that the government does, or if we are using our free speech, can the government come along getting so big and powerful that it can shut down our ability to get a hold of the money that we want, that we've worked so hard to access? And then you have to look at, when the economy starts to go nuts, are they going to limit the amount of money that you could deposit? Are they going to limit the amount of money that you will be able to withdraw?
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Jen.
These are really scary things.
Yeah, and very real, and very relevant because of with the bank run situation. You see what happens to the system when people pull money out of the banks or out of their brokerage accounts or whatever. And we're talking about IRAs, regular accounts. Mm-hmm. They have to stop that or limit that. So before we even go digital, maybe there is a withdrawal limit on what we're able to take out of the bank or what we're able to possibly move to another financial institution. So it goes back to what you started with, Jen. This is about personal freedom, and it is about privacy. And when it comes to our money, both of those things are very relevant. So why would we take that lightly? We need to be vigilant about our money. We need to take whatever precautions we can to keep our purchasing power, keep our safety of our money, and keep our privacy. And the one thing that nobody wants to talk about, at least I don't think enough people are, and people aren't taking it seriously possibly, converting some of those paper assets, Jen, into something you could hold that has historically held its value. It's a crisis asset. It's been money for thousands of years, physical gold and also physical silver.
Yeah, and you can get that and get more information at MidasGoldGroup.com. Veteran-owned, America First Patriots, MidasGoldGroup.com, 855-322-4653, no matter where you are, California.
Anywhere in the galaxy.
Arizona,
yes,
Mars, wherever
that's exactly
you are.
right, yeah.
You can call 855-322-4653. And let's just drill into why gold is good, especially in the face of digital currency, and that is that it is still a private transaction. This is not something that Big Brother or Uncle Sam is going to be watching. This is something that you can do on your own.
Yeah, and like again, Zen, we're not giving financial advice, but if the economy faltered or we went into a recession, if they print a lot more money, which to me is inevitable, if they take out a lot more debt and spend more, which
that
is
doesn't sound like our government. Come on.
If you think that any of these things are going to continue, it would be really silly to think that your dollar is going to be worth more in the future. It's going to buy less. Look at 20 years ago. Everything costs what? Double of what it cost 20 years ago?
20 minutes ago sometimes.
Well, let's, we don't want to cause panic here, but what I would say is...
I'm just thinking about my eggs. My eggs got really pricey all of a sudden.
Yeah. Do they include that in the inflation numbers?
No.
I noticed that they just include certain things to, keep the numbers, relatively low because they're probably a lot higher than what they actually are. But the point is, if all of this stuff happens, or even some of this stuff that's really negative for what we feel our money is because we don't trust it anyway, what could you hold that will protect you from losing all of your buying power when things get bad? And that leads us back to gold. It always has, always will.
And this is something that you can hold on to, again, at home, private transaction. You'll be able to put it wherever you keep things that are important to you. You don't have to rely on the viability of the banks or the government oversight. And that can be something worth investigating for sure for your family as you're thinking about how you want to hold the money that you have for retirement or for your legacy for your family. Midas Gold Group is there and ready for you. MidasGoldGroup.com. You'll want to call 855-322-4653 and get more information, 855-322-4653. And, of course, you're listening to The Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
That all makes sense to me, Jen.
Yeah, doesn't it?
It does make sense to me. Now, I'm not as smart as some of the great leaders that we have and that are making these important decisions, but God dang it, that makes sense to me.
I'll tell you what, we are going to check in with some of the brainiac leaders on just where they might be driving our economy. And I got news for you. You don't want to miss it. That's for sure. It is The Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn. Check in with Midas Gold Group as well. MidasGoldGroup.com, 855-322-4653. You're listening to The Gold Standard with Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn.
Dr. Gorka here. You're listening to The Gold Standard with your hosts, Ken Russo from veteran-owned Midas Gold Group and Jennifer Horn. Owning private money in the form of physical gold and silver is perhaps more important than ever to your long-term financial security. As U.S. banks fail, the Biden administration sends hundreds of billions abroad while depleting our strategic oil reserves. However, the biggest financial threat may be coming from within: central bank digital currency. The patents have been filed and the big banks have released plans for implementation. Midas Gold Group sees tyrannical implications, the end of cash, the end of financial privacy, big government able to see your every purchase. Could there be ties to social credit? Hear more commentary on the political and economic issues that affect your financial security right here on The Gold Standard. You can create your own gold standard with a call to Midas Gold Group, 855-322-GOLD. That's 855-322-4653, MidasGoldGroup.com.
Welcome back to the Gold Standard Radio Show. I'm Jennifer Horn. We are back. That is Ken Russo. And, we're talking a little bit about the economy, your money, digital currency. And really, Ken, how can you go wrong when you have such really, I don't know, high IQ people really leading us.
Intelligent.
They are just leading us like you wouldn't believe. And I know one of them, your favorite.
Yeah, he's up there. He is one of my favorites.
He doesn't even have to wear a suit most days. All he needs is a dirty, dirty sweatsuit. John Fetterman
Very
is
good.
one of your favorites, right?
Yeah, and just a rotten monetary system, and the people that are calling the shots to some degree. Obviously he doesn't handle fiscal policy. But what exactly is the criteria these days to be a politician? What is the criteria? Yeah, I need to lie. You need to be able to print money. I need to spend money that we don't have. I need to be, not reasonable. Maybe some of these characteristics. But I did see one clip this past week. Mr. Fetterman actually had a decent thought because it seems to me like he was talking about the dangers of the banking system and how realistic it is to feel that maybe one bank or one reckless management team could actually cause a lot of damage, which he was actually pretty right. The problem is according to the clip, he really couldn't express his thoughts.
Yeah. Is it staggering responsibility that the head of a bank could literally crash our economy? It's astonishing. That's like if you have, and they also realize is that now they have a guaranteed way to be saved by no matter how, So it's isn't it appropriate that this kind of control should be more stricter? Prevent this kind of thing from going? Or should we just go on and start bailing and sailing whoever bank, regardless of how their conduct is?
Okay, now there's a couple of pieces in there that were actually okay.
I heard him say that you can't have these banks kind of collapsing. You can't have just somebody running banks into the ground, which is what we've seen with Silicon Valley Bank and other terrible mismanagement. They didn't even have a risk management person on staff on their team. And then he said, we can't keep bailing them out. So I've got to say,
that was a coherent thought.
With the struggle, John Fetterman actually may be onto something.
As feeble as a person that, in my opinion, he is, and I'm sorry, I know there was a medical situation there, but these are the people that we're entrusting our system to, you know, and in essence, he's going to handle spending decisions. He's going to handle other things and other people around him, important decisions. So it goes back to trust. So if we're going to have a monitored system that we really can't trust, and instead of having paper money, we're going to have digital fiat money that we still can't trust, what are we supposed to do? Well, one thing that we can do is we could always turn to the highest leader.
Chairman Joe.
Absolutely. And
for those of you who don't know, that's Joe Biden, our president, right?
Because in a time of, difficulty, which we will have, somebody's going to have to make the final decision, and somebody's going to have to say, hey, listen, this is what we're going to do. I'm the leader, and I have this under control. And recently, Joe was talking about Nancy Pelosi and talking about how in the past she's handled some situations with the economy, which I thought were very interesting, Mike.
With Nancy leading the way, you never had to worry about whether the bill would pass. She said she had the votes. She had the votes every time. And she had the votes, so many life-changing pieces of legislation. She helped rescue the economy in the Great Depression.
Whoa, hold on.
Wait a minute. Did
White
they catch
flag
that?
on that play. Hold on.
Yeah.
Now, she does seem like she could have been during the Great Depression, but I don't know if that's true. That might be another Bidenism.
Well, she was born in 1940, and I'm not a historian, but I do think that the Great Depression was probably in the 30s.
Yeah, might have missed her.
So, but
so these are the people that we're trusting to, number one, handle our money right now as it is in the current system, and number two, roll out a digital system that's supposed to just let the government handle our paychecks, our transactions. Let them take a look. And we haven't even started to talk about social credit scores, which could be really scary too. When you have the government deciding, if you're voting in a certain way, or if you're saying something on social media, if somehow that should, take a little nick off of the credit score that they're assigning you.
Yeah, and what was interesting this week, too, Jen, I saw that 19 Republican attorney generals from 19 different states were accusing J.P. Morgan Bank of closing and freezing assets and accounts because of political beliefs and religious beliefs. Now, I mean, is that so unimportant that people don't realize that if our whole monetary system is being monitored and if we have zero control, wouldn't it make sense to have at least control of some of our money, some of our IRA assets, some of our retirement assets? And that's what we're talking about. We don't know how all this is going to play out. This is our opinion. But we're definitely headed towards a more monitored system. We're definitely headed towards a system where our money's going to be worth less. We may be headed towards a system that, for whatever reason, is going to be brought to its knees one way or another. Who knows? The fact of the matter is you got to hedge your bets. You can't risk everything that you've saved, Jen, and worked for in that kind of a system. You have to have some safety, and that's where gold comes in.
It's much easier to plan ahead than to try to tread backwards and try to fix the mistakes or try to fix something that you put off because it was just easier to do it.
You got to get in front of this, Jen. And this is inevitable. Now, whether if it's going to be a week or 6 months or 6 years or 16 years, no one knows. But you have to get in front of this. At least this way you'll have some options. You'll be able to financially survive. And when we come out of this on the other end, how ugly it's going to get, who knows? At least you'll have some of what you've saved intact.
And you can always have those conversations with Midas Gold Group, a great group of folks. 855-322-4653. Ken Russo is there as well as the whole team waiting to answer your questions. 855-322-4653. MidasGoldGroup.com. This is the Gold Standard Radio Show. Ken Russo and Jennifer Horn here. And I do want to ask you, because I think this is related, Ken, when you have some of these banks that are starting to collapse, and you heard John Fetterman talk about this.
Right.
One of the ways that
Kind
they can
of.
say, kind of.
Yes.
I know. I use the word talk
Kind
lightly.
of.
Look, hey,
Yes.
you got a couple of words out. But when these banks start to collapse, the government's idea is to just print more money to bail them out, which in and of itself is taking away the value of the dollars that you have currently saved and invested.
Yeah, and this is not a, problem that's occurred over the last few weeks or even year or two. It's
Right.
been made worse, but this has been going on for decades.
Mm-hmm.
Too much spending, too much money printing, too much reckless policy. It's not going to stop. Now we have a system, Jen, that's addicted to debt. Okay, so no matter who comes in, we may have a little pocket of strength or, normalty for a little while, but it's a system that continues to need to be fed with fake money.
Yeah.
So what's going to happen to our money? It's inevitable. It's going to be worth less. And unfortunately, if they reset it, part of a digital system, who knows what it's going to be worth?
Because they'll have to reassess the value of the dollar when they move it into a digital currency, if that's the direction in which this goes.
More than likely, yeah. I mean, and we're not here to explain how it's exactly going to work. No one really knows. But whenever the government does something, it's usually wrong, and they usually pay too much for it. It's usually done incorrectly. For me personally, I don't have trust in that process where I'm going to leave all of my assets in that type of a situation. Yeah. I have to take some of my retirement assets. I have to take some of my liquid assets, and I have to put it somewhere where that I can control, something that I know that's going to hold its value, something that's out of the system, gold bars, gold coins, and some silver too, John.
And there's so many different options that you can look at, whether you've got an old IRA, maybe a retirement account that's not working
maybe
for
an
you.
old 401k, and it's not an easy decision. It requires time. This is important. So I would encourage people to call in and let's start that conversation. And the best time to do it is today.
Yeah, you don't want to put off what you can do today. Plan for your future, and you can do it by calling Midas Gold Group. Find out just about some of the options that might be right for you. MidasGoldGroup.com is the website. That's MidasGoldGroup.com. You can also talk to everybody. Everybody that I've spoken to at Midas Gold is just top notch. 855-322-4653, whether you're in California, If you're in Arizona, wherever you are hearing our
That's
voices.
right. Even Mars.
Even Mars.
Venus,
That's where John
Jupiter.
Fetterman lives.
Yeah, possibly.
We thank you for listening to us, and call 855-322-4653, 855-322-4653. And Ken Russo, always fun doing the show with you.
Yeah, and how about anybody calls in or writes in, Jen, and they said they heard Jen and Ken on the radio, a free 1-ounce Silver Eagle, regardless if they do business or not. No obligation to do anything.
I love
Mention the
that.
show, and we'd be happy to do that.
Little free gift at 855-322-4653. Thanks so much for joining us. For Ken Russo, I'm Jennifer Horn. This is The Gold Standard.